I was coming home for Christmas after years of military service, but just days before, my dad sent a text that shattered my world. It wasn't about a surprise party or even bad weather. It was a single chilling message that simply read, "Your mother isn't well. Don't tell her I told you." Can you even imagine that? Being so close to finally seeing your family after what felt like an eternity, only to have that gut punch delivered to you out of nowhere. Tell me, what would you have done in my shoes? Let me take you back to where this all began. My name is Alex, and I'd been serving in the Marines for the past 7 years. 7 years, that's a long time to be away from home, especially when your home is a quiet, idyllic town nestled in the heart of Vermont. My parents, bless their hearts, were the quintessential small town couple. My dad, Mark, was a stoic but loving man who ran the local hardware store, known by everyone for his dry wit and unwavering integrity. My mom, Sarah, was the heart of our family, a kindergarten teacher whose warmth and endless patience radiated from her like sunshine. She was the kind of person who remembered every child's favorite color and every neighbor's birthday. We weren't rich, but we had something far more valuable, a tight, knit family and a community that felt like an extended family. When I first enlisted, it was a decision born out of a mix of youthful idealism and a desire to see the world beyond our small town. My parents, naturally, were worried sick, but they supported me wholeheartedly. My mom, in particular, would send me care packages filled with homemade cookies, even if they arrived a little crumbled, and long, rambling letters detailing everything from the town's latest gossip to updates on her prize, winning hydrangeas. Those letters were my lifeline, a tangible connection to the life I'd left behind. Every call, every email, every holiday card from home was cherished. My dad, less effusive, would mostly just say, "Stay safe, son, we're proud of you," but I knew what he meant. I knew they missed me terribly, and I missed them even more. Over the years, leave was always difficult to coordinate. There were deployments, training exercises, and the sheer logistical nightmare of getting from wherever I was in the world back to Vermont. I managed a couple of brief visits, mostly for funerals or urgent family matters, but never a proper, extended stay where I could just relax and truly reconnect. Christmas, in particular, was a dream I held onto, a flickering image of snow, warm fires, and my mom's legendary apple pie. This year, though, was going to be different. I had managed to secure 2 full weeks of leave, perfectly timed to arrive just a few days before Christmas Eve. I hadn't told my parents the exact date of my arrival. I wanted to surprise them. It was going to be the best Christmas ever, a reunion 7 years in the making. I could almost taste the pie, smell the pine needles, feel the warmth of their embrace. I had meticulously planned every detail. My flight was booked, my gear was packed, and I had even bought a special gift for my mom, a beautiful silver locket engraved with our family initial. For my dad, a vintage fishing lure he'd been eyeing for years. I imagined their faces when I walked through the door. My mom would shriek, probably cry, and smother me in hugs. My dad would give me that rare, genuine smile, a strong handshake, and maybe even a clap on the back. It was going to be perfect. Then came the text, 3 days before my scheduled flight. I was in my barracks, scrolling through some old photos on my phone, a nostalgic smile on my face. My phone buzzed. It was my dad. "Your mother isn't well. Don't tell her I told you." The words hit me like a physical blow. The air left my lungs. My heart started pounding so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. Asterisk not well. Asterisk, what did that even mean? My mom was never not well. She was a picture of health, vibrant and full of life. This wasn't like her to be sick. A cold maybe, but not well, sounded ominous, chilling. I immediately tried to call him, but he didn't pick up. I tried again, and again, nothing. My mind raced. Was it serious? Was she in the hospital? Why hadn't he told me sooner? Why the secrecy? "Don't tell her I told you." That line haunted me. It implied a conspiracy of silence, a burden he was carrying alone, perhaps to protect her, or me, or both of us. The joy and anticipation of going home evaporated, replaced by a cold dread that settled deep in my bones. My perfect Christmas reunion was crumbling before my eyes. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, my dad called me back. His voice was strained, hoarse. "Alex, son, I'm sorry about the text. I didn't know how else to tell you." He paused, a long, heavy silence stretching between us. I could hear the hesitation, the pain in his voice. "Your mother. She's been diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's." The world tilted. Alzheimer's, my vibrant, sharp, memory-filled mother. It sounded impossible, a cruel joke. I felt numb, disconnected from my own body. "What do you mean, Dad? How long? What stage?" My questions tumbled out, desperate and rapid. Fire. He explained it all, his voice cracking at times. It had started subtly, a few forgotten names, misplaced keys, minor confusions. They had brushed it off as stress, age, anything but what it turned out to be. But then it got worse, more frequent, more profound. Appointments were missed, conversations were repeated verbatim minutes later, and there were moments of disorientation. He had taken her to specialists, undergone countless tests, and finally, the diagnosis: early onset. Aggressive, he had been trying to shield me, to not worry me while I was deployed, hoping against hope that it wasn't as bad as it seemed. But it was, and now she was starting to forget more and more. She was still mostly herself, still smiling, still kind, but there were growing gaps, moments of confusion that terrified him. And she didn't want anyone to know, especially me. She wanted to maintain the illusion of normalcy, to spare us the pain. My dad's voice was barely a whisper when he added, "She still remembers you, Alex. She talks about you constantly, about you coming home for Christmas. That's why I sent the text. I need you to be prepared, and please, son, don't let on that you know. Just be you, for her." So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Here I was, about to fly home, not to a joyful surprise reunion, but to a delicate charade, a performance of ignorance, to protect the fragile peace of my mother's fading mind. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have confronted her? Would you have pretended? What's the right thing to do when the truth itself could cause more pain? The flight home was the longest of my life. Every minute felt like an hour, every hour an eternity. I stared out the window, watching the clouds, my mind replaying my dad's words, my mom's face. How much had she changed? Would I even recognize the gaps? How was I supposed to pretend? The weight of it all was crushing. I practiced my lines in my head. "Mom, I'm home. It's so good to see you." I tried to conjure up the image of my carefree arrival, but it was tainted by the grim reality. When I finally landed, the cold Vermont air hit me, a familiar comfort that was now mixed with an unbearable sadness. My dad was waiting at the gate, his usual stoic demeanor replaced by a look of profound exhaustion and worry. He pulled me into a tight hug, a hug that spoke volumes of his burden. "She's at home, son. She thinks you'll be here in a few days." We drove in silence, the familiar landscape of snow, covered fields and bare trees passing by in a blur. My dad filled me in on the latest details, how some days were better than others, how she sometimes struggled with simple tasks, how she would get agitated if she couldn't remember something. My heart ached for him, carrying this secret alone for so long. As we pulled into our driveway, my childhood home looked exactly as I remembered it, a warm glow emanating from the windows, a wreath on the door. But inside I knew things were irrevocably different. My dad squeezed my arm. "Remember, son, smile, be happy for her." I took a deep breath, trying to compose myself, to shove down the knot of emotions tightening in my chest. This was for her. I walked through the door, and there she was, my mom, standing in the living room, surrounded by half-wrapped Christmas presents, her back to me. She was humming a carol. She looked thinner, perhaps a little more fragile, but otherwise she was still her asterisk. "My Mom," I said, my voice barely a whisper, thick with emotion. She turned slowly, her eyes widening, a beautiful, genuine smile spreading across her face. "Alex, my goodness, what are you doing here so early?" There was no confusion, no hesitation in her recognition. It was pure, unadulterated joy. She rushed towards me, her arms open wide, and wrapped me in a hug so tight it nearly knocked the wind out of me. Her familiar scent, a mix of lavender and cinnamon, filled my senses. I buried my face in her shoulder, fighting back tears. This was the moment I had dreamt of for so long, but it was laced with such a profound sorrow. "I decided to surprise you." I managed to choke out, my voice still unsteady. My flight got moved up. The lie felt like a lead weight on my tongue, but her smile was worth it. The first few days were a strange blend of overwhelming happiness and constant vigilance. My mom was delighted to have me home. She bustled around, cooking my favorite meals, asking me endless questions about my time in the Marines, her eyes sparkling with pride. I tried to answer as naturally as possible, sharing anecdotes, laughing at her jokes. My dad and I exchanged subtle glances, silent signals, whenever a moment of potential difficulty arose. I started to notice the subtle changes. She would ask the same question twice in a span of an hour, sometimes even within minutes. She would occasionally misplace things and get frustrated, a flicker of fear in her eyes before my dad or I would gently help her find them. Once she started telling me a story about a neighbor's dog, only to trail off mid-sentence, her gaze unfocused, as if she had lost her place in time. My dad quickly jumped in, seamlessly picking up the narrative, steering the conversation back on track. It was a heartbreaking dance, a constant improvisation to keep the illusion alive. The hardest part was watching her try to remember something, the effort etched on her face, the way her brow would furrow, her eyes searching for a connection that wasn't there. It was like watching a light slowly dim, a beautiful flame losing its intensity. There were moments when I desperately wanted to confront her, to tell her I knew, to embrace her and tell her it was okay, that we would face it together. But then I would see the genuine happiness on her face, the way she reveled in my presence, and I knew my dad was right. This delicate charade, this shared secret, was for her. It was to protect her joy, her peace, for as long as possible. Christmas Eve arrived, and despite everything, our home felt festive. The tree was decorated, carols were playing, and the scent of my mom's apple pie filled the air. She was beaming, her eyes bright. My whole family together for Christmas. She kept saying, "It's been so long, Alex." I wrapped my arm around her, holding her close, trying to memorize every detail of that moment, knowing how precious and fleeting it was. That night, after she had gone to bed, my dad and I sat by the fire, the only sound the crackling of the logs. He poured us each a drink, and we talked for hours, really talked, for the first time in years. He confessed how hard it had been, the fear, the loneliness, the constant worry. He spoke about her moments of clarity, where she would cry and say she was losing herself, and how those moments broke his heart. He told me he was tired, so deeply tired, but that he would never give up on her. I told him I was proud of him, that he was the strongest man I knew. We cried together, two men sharing a grief that had been too heavy for one. That night, I realized the true depth of love, the kind of love that sacrifices everything, that silently carries immense pain for the sake of another. My dad wasn't just protecting my mom. He was fiercely loving her, guarding her dignity and her happiness in the face of an unforgiving disease. And I, by pretending, was playing my small part in that great act of love. My leave eventually came to an end, and saying goodbye was agonizing. My mom was sad, of course, but she didn't have the same depth of despair she might have had if she fully grasped the reality of my departure. She hugged me tight, told me to be safe, and reminded me to call her. She didn't remember that I had just been home for 2 weeks, or that I had promised to be back as soon as possible. She just knew her son was leaving. As I walked out the door, I turned back to look at her one last time. She was waving, a bright, loving smile on her face. My dad stood beside her, his arm around her shoulders, his eyes meeting mine. In his gaze, I saw the shared burden, the unspoken understanding, and the profound love that bound us all. I knew then that this wasn't just my story, it was our story. It was the story of a family facing the unimaginable with courage, resilience, and a love that transcended memory itself. I've been back a few times since, and each visit is a little harder, a little more heartbreaking. The gaps are bigger, the moments of confusion more frequent. But there are still flashes of her, moments where the old mom shines through, a quick witty remark, a knowing glance, a warm embrace that feels like coming home. And in those moments the charade falls away, and it's just us, mother and son, connected by a bond that no illness can truly sever. This whole experience taught me so much about love, sacrifice, and the quiet strength of family. It also taught me about the different kinds of truth, and how sometimes compassion means protecting someone from a truth they can't bear. Like this video if you were on my side, if you think sometimes love means a beautiful lie. Subscribe for more stories like this, and please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. What would you have done differently? How do you deal with such a difficult situation? I'll see you all in the next story.